Hey, this is David with Hagerty in our DIY series. Today I got a little quick video relative to black oxide coating. In the past we've talked about all kinds of different ways to coat bolts and so on and so forth, stuff that will hold up well. Well, when we were down at Ron's machine shop with our Model A engine getting that done, they black oxide all the rods and some of the internal components that they don't put any of the Gliptol on. So that kind of caught my attention because I've always looked for stuff, you know, to coat. Like this is the oil plug on the pan, and it's been sandblasted, it looks good, but of course it's not going to look very good without any kind of coating on it, protect it. I could shoot this with clear coat, it'll last for a while. Cerakote will work very well, but again, it's a small piece to send it down, all that type of stuff. So what I found is they use this stuff from, it's called Instablack. It's from EPI, Electrochemical Products, Inc., out of Wisconsin. And basically it's a four-part function, and one of which is a sealing mechanism at the end of the day. Now, I'm not going to need to seal the rods because I'm going to coat these. I've sandblasted them, but you can see I'm already getting just a little bit of haze, surface rust on them. Yes, in the motor, will they have oil on them? In theory, if they're running all the time, yes. If the car is just sitting, you know, the oil's gonna come off and you get rust, and we're gonna make them look nice. So when you order your kit, you're gonna get these 4 containers. You have step 1, which is your cleaning solution. 2 is your, like a prep or almost a surface prep, call it a primer. And then this is your black oxide that'll actually turn the part to its black color. And then the last step is a sealing mechanism. Now, I've already went ahead, these are concentrated. So what I've done is mixed these up in these individual containers, the 3 of them. And I tell you what, these PPG deals, and there's other brands as well, but these are just a mixing cup for paint, but they work really nice because they have all your measurements and that right straightforward on the outside of the can. So, and they have lids, so when you're done, you don't have to worry about throwing it out because there's all kinds of it. It goes a long ways. All right, so then, of course, being chemically based, I will wear gloves doing this because I'm going to have to grab the parts in and out of the container, and then I'm just going to use a chip brush. I'll pour my solution in here, put my part in, use a chip brush to spread it around and kind of massage it on and clean it that way. And then over here is just a bucket of clean water that I'm going to rinse them off in, and then just dry them off real quick in between each step. So with that, let's get rolling here. Now the parts I'm working on today, these are actually connecting rods out of our Buick build. And I'm going to do one at a time. And then this is the oil plug as well for the pan. So I pre-mixed all this stuff, so it's the correct solution, concentrate. Obviously the instructions walk you through that. Just grab a chip brush. So I'm going to take and literally just kind of hit all the surfaces on this plug, just getting it cleaned off. Think of it as a wax and grease remover if you're familiar with doing painting of anything. Okay. Now the rods and the plug I have kind of pre-cleaned them, meaning I've ran them off with just regular old brake clean, just to make sure there was no oil, big amounts of oil on them. This is kind of that secondary step that really gets things clean. Okay, so now I'm going to just blot this off. Obviously we're going to put it in the next step of solution, but in the time it's going to take me just to go back and forth, I don't want to get a bunch of flash rust on everything. The other good reason to have rubber gloves on are you don't basically contaminate a clean part as well. So this will be perfect. Actually, I think it's good because it illustrates you can do it with one. All right, stick that right there. Covered up. I'm gonna just loosely wipe this out. Yeah, and if you wanted to have like, you're going to do multiple stages of this, multiple parts, you could certainly have more bends, and kind of set yourself up as like an assembly line. I'm just going to go through and loosely wipe everything out and reuse the same container. All right, so step 2 is the surface prep. So that's probably like think of maybe as an etching or a primer type base. So we basically cleaned it. And I'm going to use a whole different brush every time. This has a kind of a muriatic acid smell to it. So that's what the etching function is going to be. Condition the surface so it's nice and clean, and your carbon, which is what's going to get stained. I don't want to keep saying coating because this is not a coating. Coating has a thickness to it. Take those with me. You can see that they've already turned I'll say a darker color of gray. And that's just from the surface prep end of things. And if you were close to your sink, you could certainly just rinse these out as well. Because every one of the solutions it's all diluted with water. All right, so here is your oxide function. So I'm going to set this in here first. This one. And the oxide is it will get darker as longer you leave it in here. I'll put this in here too. And there's as far as the oxide standpoint, like I said, the length of time that you leave it in here is the darker it'll get, or you're just keeping it wet. Now, ideally, you could probably have a little deeper container and just submerge it completely, but doing this with a brush works just fine. So they say when you soak it, leave it in there for I think it was 1 to 2 minutes, depending on how dark you wanted things. And it will have some amount of corrosion protection just as it is, but the final would be using this coating, which I'll show you on the plug. And the last step for the rod will be rinsing it off. And now, since that's my final step there, I certainly want to dry this off the best I can, and probably a little bit of compressed air would be a good idea as well. So in our case, we got a little bit dark, and the finished color is obviously going to change depending on what the material is. These are like a cast or forged rod, so you have a little bit different color than what you'll get with this piece of steel, as you can see here. So this is probably a 1215 steel, and just a free machining deal. Pretty standard. It's going to take that oxide differently than the casting or the forging will. All right, so the final step for our plug is going to be this sealer. And the sealer is a straight up, no dilution. It has kind of a varnish smell to it. I'm going to pour a lot in here just to make it easier. At the end of the day, take your part, dump it in there 6 to 12 times, depending on how much coating you want to it. Now this has, you're not going to rinse this back off. You're going to let it kind of soak to the surface. And then we're just going to set it down and let it dry. And that coating will give us, this step will give us our rust preventative. And that does not, the idea is this coating does not chip or anything like that as far as like a paint would. All right, so just a real quick recap. It's a 4-part process. You have a cleaning function for oil and grease. You etch the surface, and then you put the Insta Black on there, and that changes the color. And then lastly, you have a sealer function. Now, the first 3 steps are a concentration. So that's where these containers come in, dilute them with water to the prescribed amount relative to the instructions. And then as you go, you can see the difference in the color. So I'm getting some amount of rust preventative by doing this on even without the clear coat. And then you have, as far as how dark you want them is how long you keep them in the oxide solution. Hopefully you found this informative today. You know, as we go through and do our normal day-to-day redline rebuild stuff and doing our projects, we come up with a few of these things that are really good DIYs. Hopefully you're finding them interesting as well. If you have any questions, certainly leave them in the comments section. We'll answer anything that we come across. And then if you have some DIYs you want to see, obviously throw them in there as well. So, thanks for watching. See you later.